I really want to thank you all for being here. I think it's terrific that so many turned out for this. What I want to talk about is why. Why did I choose to do this? Why am I encouraging you to do this? For the past, I'm a survivor like Jeff. I've been in the business for over 30 years. He's done better. But the last few years, I really, with the digital age, I've always felt, because I hear writers complain a lot, and I go like, you know what? You really have to be entrepreneurial. You really have to be proactive. And so I started teaching at UCLA an online class called Writing a Spec Pilot. And that went really well, and I don't do it every term, but then out of that I got a book that I wrote called Automatic Pilot, which I structured like a pilot before he takes off has to go down a checklist to make sure he doesn't crash and burn. Same thing for writers. Before you start writing your script, go down a checklist of the development stages to make sure you don't crash and burn when you're halfway through it. So after that, about 2 years ago, I really became involved with web series. And I don't know how many people have made a web series here. That's a fair amount. That's good. How many people were around here for the strike of 2008 and 2009? Okay. That's when this all started. All right. The WGA planted a flag in the new media and web series. And out of that came several enterprising people who created a platform called Strike TV. And what that they encouraged us to do right after that in 2009 was to, anybody wants to create a web series that we could at least have content on the platform and not just Strike TV as a logo. And we said, okay, I'll do it. And I'm out of advertising and I know production somewhat. So I knew that the main thing about doing these things is don't spend a dime and make sure it's easy to do. So what I did was I created a series called Psychobabble. And it was done literally for the price of pizza for 10, which is now the name of my new production company. That's my living room. I shot it with 4 flip cameras, which are no longer in business. And I was told I could never do it. And whenever it tells me I could never do it, that's why I do it. Because they might be right, but what if they're wrong? So it was shot with 4 flip cameras, edited on my MacBook, and it cost pizza for 10. These are a group of improv actors who I put together. It was a terrific group, and we had a lot of fun doing it. And actually, I do have, if I can find it here now, a video that's just a little bit. It's sort of like, let's see if I can get the video. It's, if not, oh, look, there's the Mercedes. That's my wife's next car. She's in Arbonne. All right, take a look at this. I think you'll have fun with it.
You can rate any guy then, right?
I have a number.
Really?
You want my number? You want me to tell you?
Yeah, I want to hear the number.
You're a classic 4.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
Or
You should be dating girls that are 1.25 tops.
I'm dating a girl right now. She's a redhead.
Redheads will be extinct. A relationship in and of itself is hard enough.
Oh yeah.
But now I gotta not only keep the relationship going, I gotta keep a species going. She likes NASCAR.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
that is the worst thing she could do. A friend of mine was at one of those NASCAR races. The car flew up into the stands, cut his legs right off.
Can you imagine a redhead with no legs?
How do you reproduce when you have no legs? I've been trying to reconcile my relationship with my brother.
Does anybody have any suggestions for Jim to handle this situation?
I can help you. Let him and I keep dating. We build this this relationship, this foundation based on these lies and untruths.
Well, where's the payback?
The payback, Jim, patience. The payback comes, 50 years from now when you're in an old folks' home being wheeled around by your brother.
All right, we did 5 episodes of that, and they were great fun to do. And like I said, the goal was to do them simply and cheaply. All right? And now we've come a long way, and some of our panelists are responsible for what I'm about to show you. They did a series called Cam Girls. And what I like about every panelist that's here now, they are entrepreneurial. They have started something on their own and built something on their own because they were tired of sitting around waiting for something to happen. And being writers, we're the first link in the chain. There is no reason not to say, I now know how I can do that. So I really just, the whole evening is based on hopefully motivating you to realize that you can do this. And I'm not talking about making a web series that's going to go viral. If anybody knows how to do that, please tell me. I'm talking about a web series is like a spec pilot. It's become something that would be nice to have in your portfolio that you can show. It can help get you work. And as a matter of fact, you'll hear from a panelist tonight who got a writing job based on her web series. So these are things that I encourage you to do. Don't think about making money on them. Don't think about them going viral. If they do, God bless you. Just think about, how is this going to help me get noticed? How is this going to help me with my work? And again, the most important thing is your voice. You have a chance. This is the only platform where you control it from concept to completion and beyond. You're in charge. There are no notes other than what your friends give you, and you can not listen to them. You know, there's nobody interfering. This is your baby. This is your voice, what you like, what you don't like. There are no rights, there are no wrongs. So, that being said, I'd like to show you the trailer for Cam Girls. Now, Charlene told me today, this was funny, that when she was putting it in the flyer there to promote, when she put down just Cam Girls and then Googled it, a lot of porn sites came up. So she put down the URL, so it's Guild approved.
I know what you're thinking. How does a normal girl with a teaching degree end up stripping online for cash?
I'd watch you.
Just what we need. A dude.
You don't know anything about her.
Wasn't there supposed to be a job interview?
That sounds nice.
Porn.
Porn is an outlet.
Scandalous.
So is everyone we know involved in porn?
You know what? I'm just gonna start from the beginning.
They've come a long way in 6 years from when I did Psychobabble. So, that being said, I would now like to bring out the panel and introduce them to you, because you will meet some of the people who did what you just saw and some of the people who are going to help you figure out how you can do what you want to do. So, Joelle and David, come over here. This is Cam Girls, Diarra. She's going to tell us how she got a writing job off her web series. Sam. He did a series called LA Beer, which is the first web series filmed before a live studio audience. So, you know, everybody tried something a little bit different. All right? RB, Richard Botto. He's the driving force, the creator, the founder, the godfather of a thing called Stage 32, which if you don't know anything about, you will after tonight. Our other panelist is caught in the traffic jam that I understand is hitting Fairfax. He is the head. When I was putting this together, I noticed that this weekend, just so happens, this weekend, there is going to be a thing called the LAWEBFEST, which is a web series festival, the largest there is, and it's going to be at Warner Brothers. So I figured this would be a great opportunity for him to come and talk about how you can get from concept to distribution and beyond, and exposure. He said he will join us when he gets here. and we'll take him at his word for that. But other than that, Ken Pisani can fill in for him. Ken? No, he's just over there. So, first thing I want to talk about is with Joelle. You know, you want to tell us a little bit about how Cam Girls came about.
Sure. Can you guys hear me? Okay, cool. So Cam Girls was actually the first pilot I wrote about like 8 years ago now. I was working as a writer's assistant, and I gave it to my friend David Slack here for notes, of which he had many. And but the best advice he gave me was to let this be the project that teaches you how to write. So for the next several years, I had done many different versions of it. And then a couple years ago now, 3 years ago, I think, he and I had met for breakfast, and he was starting a production company with his wife, the lovely Kate Bond, who is actually behind you, who's our star and executive producer. And they were looking for material for the web. And I had just finished up another version of Cam Girls. And so I, suggested it. And then Katie and I actually ended up going and developing it for the web, which was essentially taking the pilot that I had and breaking it up like kind of by the act break, making that be the episodes, and kind of making sure that each episode ended with like, a big punch. And yeah, so that was kind of how the process started.
And what kind of writing had you done before then?
I had been going up the assistant route, and so I was a writer's assistant and showrunner's assistant, development assistant. And so I had kind of written everything, that to taking David's advice, all different genres, all different. I had written comedy, I had written drama, but I'm a 1 hour drama writer.
This is different. David, when you got involved, how did this come about?
Well, first, let me just say I've been reading Joelle's writing for years, and she has a wonderful, wonderful talent for finding worlds. Like every pilot she's shown me, I'm like, oh, of course there should be a show there. Of course there should be a show there. And so for what it's worth, I think everyone should hire her. Well, my wife's an actor, and she was at a point where, she came to me and she's like, I'm really tired of taking classes and going to casting director workshops, and for what I'm spending on those, we could just make something. How would that be? And I was like, great, let's do it. So we talked with Joelle, and then, the subject matter is such an interesting thing. Part of the thing that made this seem like a fun project to do is that we knew that if this was to go as a pitch and sell to a network, a studio or a network, it would get chewed up. And Katie's very feminist, Joelle's very feminist, and I am by the transitive property as well. And Katie's argument was that whenever you see sex workers portrayed in media, they're almost always either a punchline or a cautionary tale. You have how many seasons of 2.5 Men where hookers are a joke, and then you have dramas where women are supposed to be ashamed that they do this. And so we thought it was interesting, and this was based in real experiences that Joelle had with a roommate of like somebody that, she lived with, and realizing, oh, this is how come we have a new TV. And that's where my computer went. So that's a longer, more interesting story that I'll let Joelle get into. But so it was an interesting level of freedom to take on a project like this and not have, in my day job, I'm, a co-EP I was a co-EP at the time on Person of Interest for 4 years. And there are so many levels of approval for anything you want to do. And so to be sitting there on set shooting this and be able to turn to Joelle and just be like, I think it should be that. What do you think? And then we'd talk for a second, and then that was that. And that was the end of the discussion. And that's lovely. And the thing that drew me to writing in the first place is that, it's the cheapest art form. Pen and paper. Nobody can stop you. And when we were on strike in 2008, I remember walking the picket line, sitting there outside the gates of these studios going, well, wait a second. They don't control the means of production anymore because cameras have gotten so cheap. They don't control the means of distribution anymore because of the internet. Really, the only thing they control is the means of marketing. And in our case, that, wound up being very tricky. I was on the phone with a guy at YouTube trying to explain that I was not a pornographer, which didn't go well. but I'm still glad that we chose the subject matter we chose, because I think one of the things that's unique about this project is that it's about 3 women, and it's just about them as people who have whole real lives. And this is really, I mean, it's a fascinating subject, and to be able to approach it without layers of second guessing and judgment and shaming and all of that stuff, I thought was really interesting, and we came out of it with something that I'm very happy with.
Yeah, I think you did like, what, 7 episodes, I think?
Yeah. I mean, and that's the other thing, is this is as much as there are things that, we would do differently if we made a second season, this is reproducible. I mean, how many people in this audience right now have an unproduced pilot script? That's, anybody, they're out there, right? And if you don't, someone who does. So the idea, and look, you're not going to be able to make, the spaceship or whatever, but there are a lot of pilots that, with a couple of tweaks can be producible and can be done something like in a format like this. So it's a way of getting your work out there that might not otherwise be available.
That's great. We'll come back and we'll talk more about it, but I want to go to Diarra now. She did a thing called American Koko. Hilliard? And I met Diarra. We volunteered, or we were asked to talk to the WGA Veterans Committee here, or Veterans Association here, about doing a web series, and I think Veterans is perfect example of people who could go out and do something. And so we did, and that's when I met. And when I heard her story, I said, you got to do this. So do you care to tell us how this came about, what your background is as an actress and stuff like that?
Yeah, sure. Is this on? Yeah. I started out as an actor, and I wanted to make something. Like there was an idea that I had that was nagging me, and I was like, I just want to do that. I was feeling very disempowered as an actor. And so I said to my then boyfriend, we need to make something. And luckily, his sister was just graduating from AFI. And so I wrote this web series, and we put it together. And what was insane was I had been acting. And then when my then boyfriend gave it to, his agent, she was like, and it was the agent of his that wasn't really checking for him at all. Like, he was like, she hasn't sent me on a meeting. I don't know what's going on. And she called and was like, I want to rep your wife or your girlfriend. So, so it worked. It worked out really well. And because he has 2 other great agents, it was fine. And so I think a month later, I was staffed on Mysteries of Laura, and I was there for a year. And then I started just pitching and have sold a couple of shows. And every time I walk into the room, the first thing they say is, "Oh, we love your web series." It's just become, every meeting I take, it's just become the thing that people watch. They don't necessarily read, they watch. So I couldn't recommend it more. Getting your own work out there with your own voice without any notes from anybody else or any stipulations. So.
Yeah, and actually, I think when I heard the story, you got on Laura Mars based on this seeing your web series and not anything you'd written.
Yeah, well, that is all that he had seen when I got there. All he had seen was my web series. And after the meeting, he said, "Do you have anything written down?" And I was like, yeah. Luckily, and sort of randomly, I had tried my hand at a pilot like a year or so before. And I was like, "Oh yeah, I do have this pilot." And he was like, "We just need to, be able to prove that you can actually write." And so, so I did send a pilot, but that I think it's safe to say I think he wanted to hire me before he ever read the pilot.
Great story. Sam, my committee mate, you wound up doing the first web series before a live studio audience. Why?
It was something that no one had ever done before. It was not my first web series. I made the really bad web series with my roommate in my apartment, where I'm the actor and it's also the cinematographer, and it's terrible. If you want to see it, it's really bad. And this was coming. I was also a writer's assistant. I was on a cable comedy. I was like, I can do better than this. But the other thing that I really appreciate about the live studio audience is it helps the actors pop a little bit more. It makes the writing, you have to be hard comedy a little bit more. But I was tired of writing pilots. I had done that for a long time. I wanted to work with a cast. I had produced stuff in school and college, and I had the pilot that someone else directed who was a music video guy and would jump over the 180 degrees. It's literally uneditable. You can't edit it. So there were a couple bad web series behind it, but fortunately there was a group of TV writers on the Yahoo TV writer list, and some people are here. But anyways, if you reach out to 900 people, 25 people will respond back. After 3 months, 10 people will still be interested. And after 2.5 years, you'd be amazed what 6 people can do. And I actually say that seriously. I mean, if there's one thing for people here maybe to take away tonight is do not underestimate collaboration. You do not have to do this all by yourself. In fact, you probably can't. Louis is one of those people who knows cameras. He understands what a lens is. I don't. Cinematography is a mysterious art to me, and so I appreciate trying to build a team of experts. Make your mistakes, try to shoot something in your apartment by yourself, get that experience. I really went into this wanting to have the experience of working with a cast, wanting the experience of building a writer's room. Jeff, who you heard earlier, has some nice videos down in the Writers Guild library about how to be a showrunner. So if you have those aspirations, this is really where you go from being a writer to being a writer-producer, and that's sort of the entrepreneurial spirit that I think Bill's speaking about.
Which is a perfect segue into RB. Believe it or not,
I didn't
that's
plan
him.
that.
And he created this thing called Stage 32. Now, I show this embarrassingly. This is my homepage on Stage 32, and the guy in the middle is a 14-year-old guy in summer stock on the bottom. So, Richard, how did this all come about? It's an amazing site. If you don't know anything about it, you will go home tonight and look at it. It is the resource for everything you will need. As Sam says, he doesn't know anything. For anything you need to get your web series done. Richard?
It started really back when I was an actor in New York, or the seeds of it, maybe the sort of embryonic idea. This was pre-Facebook, pre-LinkedIn. I worked with a ton of really great actors in New York, theater actors, a lot of them who were much more talented than I will ever be. But I watched a lot of them leave the game because they didn't have connections. They didn't have a network. They didn't have people that they could count on to be champions outside of maybe letting a casting director know you should take a look at this guy or girl. Fast forward about 5-6 years later, I was working on a film called Another Happy Day, which was Sam Levinson's first film, Barry Levinson's son. He wrote and directed it. And we were working on this film in Michigan because that's where the tax breaks were, and everybody would film in Michigan. And everybody was working for scale. We had Ellen Barkin, Demi Moore, Thomas Hayden Church. Great cast, great crew. And it was like summer camp, like every other independent film that you work on. Everybody's going to stay together forever. We're going to write each other, and then everybody goes their separate ways, and you don't hear from anybody. And until they need a job. And that's what happened. I came back to L.A., and I started getting calls from people saying, the tax incentives are drying up. I need a job. Can you help me? And I'm like, well, I can, but here's the problem. You don't have the head start that everybody else has. People work with the same people out here. People find their tribes. You need to find a network. You need to get connected. So this embryonic idea of Stage 32 was kind of sitting there because I was starting to write at that point, and I was looking for people to collaborate with, writing groups, people to network with, and champions of my writing. I had champions as an actor, I had champions as a producer, but certainly not as a writer. I went onto Facebook and, started trying to look for writers, and I was getting pictures of salads and babies. And I went on LinkedIn, and as I like to say on LinkedIn, we're getting crashed. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. As I like to say on LinkedIn, I started posting questions in the LinkedIn forums, in the screenwriting forums of LinkedIn, and I'd be like, hey, I want to talk to you. Anybody have some suggestions on the rewrite process? And I'd sit there for days with no responses until somebody would be like, would you read my script? And you're like, so I used to joke that LinkedIn's where conversations go to die. So I started asking people, what do you do to network? What do you do to network online? And I found that a lot of people, a lot of writers, a lot of directors, a lot of actors were having the same experience that I was having, and that was that they were just not getting any traction online. They weren't finding a network. So I decided to start Stage 32. It took me 2 years to convince myself to do it. I launched it in 2011, introduced an educational component in 2013. I started this site by going to 100 of my industry friends and basically saying, I built the first phase first. I did it backwards. I didn't ask them what they thought. I built it and then said, go look at it. And I asked 100 people to sign up. 97 of them did. I hunted down the other 3, and they eventually did. And I asked them 1 or 2 things. I said, if you like it, invite 5 more people. If you don't like it, give me 3 reasons why. Even if you like it, give me 3 reasons 3 things you don't like about it. The response was overwhelming. Within 3 months of beta, we had over 5,000 people on the site, and today we have over 600,000 worldwide. And jobs are being, there's education, collaboration, financing, projects are being launched. I think we have, how many people going to Cannes this year with films? 22 members with films at Cannes this year. It's just been a very rewarding and exciting experience, and everything that's good that's happened to me on the creative side, my last couple of acting jobs, my manager on the writing side, I'm in development with a film with Covert Films, another producing gig, all came from the site. So that's where it came from.
And to give you an idea of how extensive this site is, this is from the site where you can see all the different categories that he has. If you're looking for a cinematographer, if you're looking for development, if you're looking for whatever you're looking for, you subscribe. I mean, this is worth paying money for. I don't know why he's not charging. Shh. So it's really a fabulous, fabulous aggregated site, again, to help you find the people who will help you get your idea done, your series done. All right?
And just real quick, this section right here, which is designed, it's our version of the forums. It's designed for you guys to go in there and just have conversations about craft. This section has over 93,000 active conversations.
And the one down at the bottom, I don't know if anybody's hiding it, that's where you can go on if you have anything that you coming up, that you want to promote, that you want to sell, whatever it is, that's kept just for that. So the other categories aren't cluttered with people saying, come buy my book or whatever it might be. So that's Richard, and we're going to come back to him. And just in time is Mr. LAWEBFEST. My God. I appreciate him giving us this time tonight when his huge Webfest is starting tomorrow morning at Warner Brothers. So I really want to thank Michael for making an effort to get here, along with everybody else. Now, Michael started as a writer also, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, anything for my guild, especially when they threaten me. Yeah, I'm been a member for 21 years. I'm still a writer, producer in television. A lot of people, for some reason, they think if you're doing web stuff that you've given up TV stuff. But no, to me, it's all the same because I was doing theater before I was doing television. I'm still doing theater. I didn't stop being a playwright when I started doing television. I just started doing my plays with a bigger budget. Instead of my tax returns, I was using, putting money away for hiatus. I'm like, now I can do plays comfortably, and if it doesn't make money, I just write it off anyway. So, but
how do you start a festival? I mean, what is it? What do you sit at the kitchen table and say, I'm going to start a festival?
No, really, like a lot of things, it started by accident. I made a web series. I was on a TV show. We were on hiatus. Before I even made a web series, I watched them for a year just to try to understand it because I didn't understand it. And then I felt like I had something that might work, and I made the show. And then my editor and we'd sit together and watch it. I'd come over every week and we'd watch it. And I started saying, man, this is like we're on a date, We're just us, and it's kind of claustrophobic. We probably need more people. We should invite our girlfriends or whatever. We should do something because this is fun together. Maybe if we had a room full of people that might, And so that's what it started with, how it started. And then I, again, have a theater background. There's a theater that I know of that is used to exist called Stage 52 in the Miracle Mile area. I did a bunch of plays there, and they had a screen bigger than that, like 3 times that size. It came out of the ceiling, 100 seats. had a smaller room that was a storage room that I knew he used to do one woman shows, one man shows. Put 40 chairs in there. Well, there's my conference room. There's my screening room. And then he's my boy, so he said, hey, do it. I told him what my idea was. It was Christmas 2009. He said, I said, I don't have any money for you right now. And he said, that's okay, Mike. You've done 10 plays here. None of them made money. I'm used to it. Pay me later. And so with 8 weeks of preparation, to me, it's not that, I didn't think it was that hard. I was waiting, actually. I waited for all of 2009 for someone else to do it. You know how you want it, but you don't want to do it? And then I just kept saying, we really need to get each other together, get out of our homes, away from our laptops and desktops, and just get together in community like they do in the movies. That's how it started, and I was surprised all these people that came out of nowhere. About 1,500 people came to the first LA WebFest, right on Washington and Hauser. The theater no longer exists. Like a lot of theaters, went out of business a couple of years ago. But that was the home of the LA WebFest the first 2 years. We even had a billboard. They have a billboard above the theater, and the owner owned the billboard. So for a really small amount of money, he let me put a poster. So people thought I was making a lot of money because, wow, he's got a billboard too. This web thing is blowing up, They didn't know the truth. And so we had a billboard, and people came. People didn't just come from around LA. They came from across the country. They came from Mexico, Canada. Then I got an email after the first festival. I got an email from a producer in France, saying, hey, I'm in France. I want to do a Webfest. Can you help me? So I wrote a bunch of letters for him to the minister of this, Marseille, and the mayor of Marseille. And then they sent them to LA in 2011 to observe my festival. And then they invited me to come to Marseille in the south of France. Later that year, I was there for a week and was presented with a key to the city from the mayor of Marseille. And went back to Marseille 5 years in a row, and then something happened similar. And some people in Rome were going to start a festival. They contacted us. We went to Rome and supported them. A guy for my festival went to Hong Kong. He was living in Hong Kong. He started one in Hong Kong. Went to Hong Kong in 2013. One of my people, someone from my festival, went from Australia. Went to Australia. Actually, she worked for me, and she fell in love with an Australian guy. So she moved all her stuff, went to Australia. And then got bored and said, because she couldn't get a job, so she decided to start a festival. I said, Melbourne's great. So many shows come out of Australia. It's like the number 3 market in the world, number 2 with web series. And so the Melbourne Webfest was born, thanks to her. She just started a new festival called the South Florida Webfest, which is going to debut in December. But these festivals have become important because and there is a guy who was in my festival, very talented, had a show a couple of years ago. I rarely go to screenings of web series for some reason. I've only been to one. The one I went to was at the Korean Cultural Center on Wilshire Boulevard, and it was a show that was sponsored by the kimchi people that own kimchi. It was called Kimchi Warrior, and I went out. I didn't even know that. I didn't know the history of the kimchi. It was like Popeye, but with kimchi. And the guy who, yeah, it's pretty cool. The guy who made the show applied to the festival. He was in the festival. He did pretty well, and then he said 3 years ago, he said, I want to bring this to my country, to Korea. Will you support me? I said, yeah, I'll support you. Yeah, right. 2 years later, Korea Webfest, K-Webfest started. He's here. Stand up, young man King, right there. The only web series festival in Asia, in all of Asia, 2 billion served, he's serving them. Young is, and I went to Korea for a week in July. I had a blast. It was incredible. So what it's doing is it's web series, which I thought was local and just LA, an American thing, is an international, global thing, a worldwide thing. They're making web series in every part of the world, and people are just telling their stories. They're not waiting for permission. It's like people that do theater, only I call the web series a play that never closes. It's always on. And it's also bringing people together, it's bringing creative communities together. A lot of people are doing mashups, they have a show in Australia and you have a show in LA, and then you do a season 2, your character, they create a character for you, and now your character is in their show, and and they're doing there's a lot of that going on, and it's.
So there's a lot of good stuff to see this weekend.
Yes,
if anybody wants to just go.
Yeah, we launch tomorrow. We started in a small theater. We're now at Warner Brothers this year. And the response has been amazing, and we open tomorrow through the weekend. And but when Bill called me and told me what he was doing, I saw Hiller's name on the list because he's a friend. I want to come down and just be a part of this and be of service to you.
Great. All right, back down to this end. Cam Girls, what has it led to?
Well, for me, it was my first produced work, so that was really exciting to see something that, I think a lot of times, and a few of us have said it, when you're writing stuff, it just sits in a drawer. So it was the first time that I got to see something come to life. And the other thing that was wonderful for me is that we did it as a WGA signatory, so I actually got into the guild because of it. So
I walked a picket line for that contract. I
thank
wasn't
you.
going to use it. I wasn't going to not use it. So it was weird, though, because I had to sign up and be a member of the AMPTP, which was, the people we were picketing, and that was weird. So now I'm in both, and I'm deeply conflicted. I keep exploiting myself. Yeah. But no, I mean, it's putting anything out there in such a open place like the internet is enormously tricky, and I think Bill's advice to not worry about things going viral is good advice. I would just try and tell a good story and make something that you can be proud of and that shows what you can do. The weird thing about it was when we finally released it, because we had spent a while with our agents trying to sell it, and that whole thing is such a wild west in terms of people want to own content. Honestly, I think if we had gone around with it as a pitch, we probably could have sold it, but we would have been in a situation where then it would have been open to a lot of different people's interpretation of how we wanted to make it. So since we had a finished product, there were a number of organizations that expressed some interest, and one was kind of stringing us along, and I was finally like, just yes or no, we got to do something with this. But by the time we had put it out, it had kind of done a lot of what we wanted it to do. It's Katie had gotten her first recurring off of having that stuff for her reel. And Joelle, got in the guild, got her first work produced, and had, this really good experience and interesting sample. And I had my first directing credit, and something that, as somebody on the road towards being a showrunner, I can drop that on somebody's desk and say, I made this for a fraction of what you're talking about making a pilot for. Don't tell me I don't know how to do this. So it kind of did all those things. In terms of putting it out there, we were talking about this before. It is shocking how hard the marketing is. Like, that's the thing that's like the shoot, which I thought would be the most daunting part. That was relatively easy. Post was orders of magnitude harder. And then the marketing was just overwhelming, because unless you're really, really able and ready to push. I mean, the things like that trailer you saw, I ran out of money to pay editors, so I bought Media Composer and I taught myself how to use it. So I cut that trailer and learned how to use the Avid, just because that's kind of what you have to do. So I would be there at, when the week we were launching, I would be there at like 1 a.m, like frantically trying to cut the next week's, next time on Cam Girls thing together. And so the marketing it's really shockingly hard. And then, we ran into the unique thing because of our subject matter of YouTube and Google really not being able to understand what we were trying to be about. So
you don't want to, well, maybe, but if you Google Cam Girls, you need to Google Cam Girls, the series.
Yeah, say the series. That should bring it right to the top. But yeah.
Yeah. Are there going to be more Cam Girls in our future?
We're talking about how we would do a second season, but it's a tricky thing. So, because the thing about this is that we own it, and that's the other thing. As a writer, as a member of the Writers Guild, most times if you're going to sell a show, you're going to go sell them a concept. They're going to buy that concept, then hire a writer who happens to be you to write that concept, but you've in that process lost your rights to what you've created. We own this. And it's the only thing I own in 17 years of doing this for a living. It's the only thing that I own aside from one other unproduced pilot. So that's kind of an interesting thing, but it also means that, the companies who are very savvy about this stuff and they want to be able to own the content in a way that gives them total control over it, it makes it a different conversation. So, and nobody knows what to do with web stuff. It's such a wild west. Like, even the companies that are out there in it, they're like, well, last month this was working, but now it's not. So it's very strange.
Diarra, are you going to have any more Kiko?
Koko? Yes. Yes. I mean, I'm like nodding my head off. It's so true. It's hard because I can't even say publicly how much I spent on it. I spent so little. So I was like, I cannot do this again and not pay people. It hurts my heart. I was just telling my friend, I have an image of my DP in the corner, like sweating and looking so sad and shriveled up. And I was like, oh man, I'd have to pay him again if he was ever going to speak to me. So that is why I did decide. It's true. I sold it. I did decide to make the second season, but through a platform, and it's new, and we are the guinea pigs. It's called ABCD. It's the ABC Digital. So we're gonna reshoot. So if you want to watch it with all of the fucks in it and everything, you should watch it on YouTube now. I also say something very unfavorable about Hillary Clinton that I feel really bad about. It's so bad. Yeah, it was a different time. I won't ever be able to explain that. Like if I have a daughter that I called the first female president a cunt. So that will be that.
You're not the only one.
That will be gone. So we're gonna reshoot the first season and shoot the second season simultaneously. And it's crazy.
Explain a little bit what you mean about you're now on a platform.
I don't know. We actually. I haven't even. We actually have our first meet. I was just thinking we have our first sort of kickoff where they're going to show me everything, the platform and everything on Monday. So I wish this were inverted. But ABC is like many of the networks. They're trying to get in the game, and they're trying to do something that feels younger and hipper. And my show is super irreverent. And so they asked if I wanted to do this, and I don't know. I have to meet with different producers. They're gonna pair me with a production company. So we will do that and go into production.
Are you gonna lose control if you do this?
You know what they said? There's no standards and practices on the web right now. I have control over the production company that they pair me with. I'm still co-directing. I'm still starring. I'm still producing. They said I can bring back my entire cast. And the notes that they've given me on my script are super minimal. And actually, they're right. They're notes that if I had to do it, I thought they were super smart. If I had to do it over again, I think that I get into the series. It's a little wonky. You kind of have to watch 2 before you really understand. Right now, they're 10 minutes each, just under 10 minutes. One is about 11, and that's another mistake that I made. That's too long for a web series. Yep. So they're good notes, and they haven't seen what I've written for a second season, but so far it doesn't seem like they're going to be too stifling.
It'll be interesting. I love people who are setting the footprints in the snow. It's really great.
Yeah.
Sam, Mr. LA Beer, are we going to drink anymore?
I probably can't say how expensive the show was to produce. It was a lot. Yeah, because we made so many mistakes, guys. So many. And you will make a mistake, and that's okay. This is a very long learning process, I feel. One of the mistakes we made is we tried to make a cheap TV show for the internet, which actually made it a really expensive internet show. Do not rent a soundstage. It's really, you don't have to do that for your web series. We kind of did for ours. I will say professionally, it is a talking point in meetings. It's a talking point for my agent. It's not a leading piece of material, but I did have the opportunity to meet on a YouTube Red half-hour comedy series, and sort of in addition to having network comedy experience, I was able to say, and I sort of understand the YouTube landscape because we had this digital thing. So if you can think about it as a complement to your portfolio, I think it can make a lot of sense. But I mean, we spent a lot of money and made some critical errors. We made a show about craft beer because I love craft beer, and we wanted to try to be very specific about what we were doing. We made Big Bang Theory for craft beer fans. Craft beer people are snobs. They are community fans. And so there was kind of a disconnect when we tried to market of what is this show you guys made? And I totally understand where they're coming from. And that is a critical error that happened in the pre-production process. So marketing marketing needs to begin before you even write anything on a page. I mean, find a Twitter hashtag that you can piggyback off of. Find talent. I heard this piece of advice recently. A series is an idea plus talent. Whether you're the talent yourself and like it's your voice and you turn yourself into a commodity because you're producing a lot of really cheap videos and you're putting it out. You know, YouTube has said if you produce 3 videos a week for 3 years, you will get 50,000 subscribers, which is about the base level to get into YouTube studios. So think about that for a real quick second, though. There is so much content being produced for the internet right now that YouTube will tell you if you do it, 450 times, you will maybe start to make a dent. So when we made 10 episodes, we tried to get it out there. I read a lot of books about marketing. If you haven't heard of it before tonight, though, that's how successful it is. Imagine everyone in this room makes a web series. It's really noisy out there. And you're not competing against everyone in this room. You're competing against Netflix. I mean, people watch Netflix and talk about watching Netflix and House of Cards. The habit for watching web series has not been created in the same way quite yet. People don't quite go to YouTube to watch web series. So yeah, making them super short, you know, we tried to do something a little different than serialization. We were like, oh, maybe if we have different topics, people will latch on to different topics. A year after our release, the one episode that is getting search hits on YouTube is the one with grope in the title. It's our sexual harassment episode. Not why people who are searching priest grope find it. But like that just sort of, like, I think it was really smart that you spent a year, you know, researching web series, because there's a community of web series producers, and a lot of them are making stuff and screening stuff for each other, trying to go beyond that to the wider world in trying to knock on doors in Hollywood. I felt really bad for some of the people who were in part of the writer's room and were like, wouldn't it be cool if we sell this? I worked in studio development as an assistant during the writer's strike. I was at ABC when they had Stage 9, which was their previous incarnation of trying to do digital stuff. And that shuttered very quickly. I worked at a place that produced stuff for Verizon Go 90. Does anyone know Verizon Go 90 or any of their series? They're putting money behind these things. They have high production quality and no one is finding them. So really, if you're thinking about this, think about the educational experience that you can get from just learning how to direct and shooting something on the cheap and not spending any money doing it. And then maybe if you get to the point where you've done a few of those, you're still writing pilots and you're like, I want to do more. How can you collaborate? How can you build yourself a team of people to really do something professional quality, really exciting that might actually, you know, galvanize the internet? Because my thing landed with a thud. And it was fun and it was great. We had like a great premiere party. And so, you know, do that and enjoy that for what it is. And appreciate that the people up here who have had real success, because that's hard and is something to be lauded.
Richard, okay, you've built this fabulous platform. You also have these creative ambitions. Are you able to use your platform for your creative ambitions and the projects you want to work on, and what do you see in your future?
Well, I think, piggybacking a little bit on what Sam said, and by the way, was there craft beer at the party?
There was so much craft beer, guys. Hangar 24, no, I will say this again. Hangar 24 was so generous to us. So go buy their beer anywhere you can.
Good beer.
Yeah.
But I want to piggyback on that. I think that it's not enough to build something. We were talking about crowdfunding in the room. The same thing is true about creating content. That's true about crowdfunding. People have this, if you build it, they will come mentality. Absolutely not true. Sam talked about marketing. I'm writing a book right now for Focal Press on crowdsourcing, crowdsourcing for film. Crowdsourcing there's marketing within crowdsourcing, but crowdsourcing at its most base is identifying, engaging, and moving a crowd. Well, how do you identify a crowd for what you're doing? Well, for Sam here, it would have been to find other craft beer people and market to them, connect with them, speak with them 6 to 9 to 12 months before they were ever going to shoot a frame of this thing. Because what you want to do is you want to engage people to the point where you're ready to launch something, they're ready to watch it. Okay, and not only are they ready to watch it, but they become such big fans of you and your brand. And I think this is something that's very, very lost on creatives in this day and age right now, because it is so important that you not only know your craft, but that you understand the business. And I find this more with writers than anybody else. It's that, we write in isolation and we kind of are insular in our own ways, that we don't really know what's going on out there. And when we don't think that we have to go out and create a brand for ourselves, and we don't think we have to go out and market ourselves, but we do. And we have to go out and market what we write as well. So if you are thinking about creating a web series, think about who your target audience is. and not only write it, but start filming one. Think about it 6 months before, at least 3 to 6 months before, and then go out there on social media. You asked if you could do it on my platform. Absolutely, but you could do it on Twitter as well. Twitter is a great way to get directly to people, and you could do it offline as well. There's a million craft beer companies in the world. You can call all of them, and you can call them up and say, hey, look, I'm about to do this. Want to get, I'll support you guys. We'll put the beer in the film, whatever it is, whatever it takes. But you're building not only a brand for yourself, you're building awareness for yourself, and you're building an audience for yourself and people that want to be champions of what you're doing. And I think that's what's really lost on a lot of people. It's just this idea of let's throw the work out into the wild and see, if people really, gravitate to it. And that's just not the case. It's the same thing. I don't want to go on a tangent, but it is really the same thing for a crowdfunding campaign. The reason why crowdfunding campaigns succeed, the ones that do the best, is because there is a 3 to 6 month pre-marketing strategy that goes in before that launch button is ever clicked. So that when that launch button is clicked, people are ready to run through a wall for you because you've cultivated those relationships and like I said earlier, you've identified, engaged, and now you are ready to move that audience. So that's really something to think about. It's not just enough to go out there and be the best writer and be the best director, but also target who you're going after very, very early on.
All right. And Michael, how do we get into your festival once we have our web series?
You apply. We have a website, LAWEBFEST.com, our new website. You apply during that period of time. We review your show. We didn't, different festivals have different ways of evaluating your show. I found the only way to evaluate your show and see if you're worthy is to watch every episode. Because just like in television, a lot of times the show, especially if it's new, it has to find its legs, figure out what it's doing. A lot of great shows didn't start off great. They were great in season 3 or season 4 or season 2. Some shows like Frasier started off great from the bat, but a show like Seinfeld took almost 4 years to figure out what it was. Remember, it was the Seinfeld Chronicles. They did 6 episodes for 3 years, etc. Web is the same way, but web doesn't get treated the same way. People act like people who are doing web series, you got to knock it out the box, and you have to do Mad Men or The Sopranos, or you're not doing anything. But most TV shows are not very good. Right? We only watch a handful of shows. There's a whole bunch of shows on television. It's the same with the web. There's a lot of bad shows, but there's some good ones too. But you won't know if you don't watch them. And like gentleman said earlier on the panel, a lot of people aren't watching web series. Even people that make web series aren't watching web series. And I tell my people that I'm work with through the festival, if you're only watching your show and your friend's show, but you won't watch that guy's show or that guy's show, you won't take a chance on some people you don't know, then how can the industry grow? It has to start from within. And I think the best example that I like to use is rap music, because I'm, I might look like I'm still 20, but I'm not. No, but I remember when rap started, and I know how it started, and it didn't start with mainstream acceptance. It started with a bunch of, mostly guys who liked a certain type of music, who they didn't play it on the radio. You couldn't go buy it in the store. You had to get it at the beach, clubs, or out of the trunk of a guy's car. And they just kept doing it that way, didn't care about the mainstream, and they started selling, started making some money. The industry heard about it, tried to emulate it, started rap divisions, shut them down because they weren't making any money. They were losing money. So then they went and paid the guys. They went and bought Def Jam from Russell Simmons. They went and bought, Delicious Vinyl. They went and bought Rock Nation and all these other labels. They incorporated them, and then they made them the money, legitimized these labels. Really didn't care. They just cared about the money. And then 10 years into it, rap in the 90s, in the 80s, you couldn't play rap on the music. In the 90s, it was the dominant music.
And now it's a television show.
And now it's exactly. So, but what I see, there's a lot of people fighting for views, and I think if you're going to make a web show, you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Am I doing this because I want to make some money? Am I doing this because I want to get my voice out? Because I'm tired of not being heard? Even if you work in television, you can feel like a hooker if you're writing stuff you don't care about, right? You're getting paid, but you don't care about this stuff. But that's why people would do theater, because I did a play every hiatus, no matter what, because that fed my soul. And it made it okay for me to go to work and do something that I might not have been passionate about, because I knew I had this. So the same thing with the web. There's a lot of people doing be amazed at what people are doing, but sometimes people are very hard on themselves because the show doesn't have enough views. They're judging themselves by, think about how many great shows were low-rated shows. Cheers was a low-rated show. Family Ties was a low-rated. The Cosby Show saved those shows. Those shows would have been canceled. So We can't always judge ourselves by how many views are we getting. What do you think about the work?
Right. You're
know,
writing something that you want to
That
see.
you're passionate about.
Yeah. Now, did I understand you clearly that to submit to the LA WebFest, you have to submit all your episodes?
No, the first year people sent videos in because it was new, and I realized, well, it is a web series festival. Why not submit your link? People had websites. YouTube was still new, still fair. People weren't sure about YouTube. So then you submit the link, and then by submitting the link, we can watch your episodes. People put them on a playlist on YouTube or Vimeo, or one of the others, or their own site, and then we watch the episodes, and then we, based on 3 screeners, we decide whether you're in or out, and if you're in, we request at least 2 of your shows, sometimes more, depending on how short they are. Never just one. Otherwise, to me, it's a shorts festival. And so, again...
Is this from all over the world?
All over the world.
Wow.
No matter who it is, you have to have 2 episodes.
That's volume.
Yeah, so like this year, we got over 400 submissions from all over the world. We average about 400 plus every year.
All right. Now, I just wanted to say, I don't know if anybody looked at it, but you were given a handout that I picked up down at YouTube. And the thing that I always learn whenever I go down to YouTube, and if anybody's gone there, YouTube space, they have seminars and all sorts of stuff, but they'll always say, whatever we tell you today, in a year's time is going to be obsolete, which doesn't mean you don't do it today. And they compiled a list. I'm not saying I concur with it, but they compiled a list of what they think a web series should have as a creative strategy. I won't discuss them all. There's 10 of them there, from is it shareable, is it conversational, is it interactive, all these kinds of elements that you might want to think about putting together, not all of them, but to enhance the value of your web series according to YouTube. So that's there for you to ponder. Coming back to the panel, if you had to do a web series today, what would you do differently?
What would we do differently, David?
Oh, I would probably choose something a slightly different title. I mean, it's so weird because I'm, happy with what we did and proud that we did it, but it definitely, that subject matter was an obstacle that I was frankly shocked to run into. It's as a man, it's the first time I've ever been slut shamed. But it happened, there were people who were just really kind of awful about it sometimes. So,
It's surprising, judging by what's on cable.
It was, well, and by the way, I think there's like 2 swear words in the show and no nudity.
No, there's no swear
words.
There's
did I cut it out?
You made me take them out.
Yeah, no S and P. That's right. We fought over the fuck, didn't we?
Yeah.
No, but it's, you have, we were just trying to make television. We were trying to make something that felt like television. And
I think it's great.
The
you
trick
guys
of that,
did something you were passionate about.
Well, and the trick of that though is that it's very hard to reproduce, because it, you don't want to say how much you didn't pay people. I don't want to say how much we did because we did it union signatory for the WGA and for SAG and paid the crew, and that
had members on our crew that had never been on a shoot before, and when we would break for lunch and take like a full 60-minute lunch, they were like, "What is happening?" Like this never,
like I would come over to apologize that we were late going to lunch because I'm used to working IATSE union hours on set, and they were like, they normally don't feed us because they're which is just another reason to be in a union and work union. But so, I mean, I think if we were going to do a new series from the ground up, I think we'd think more about reproducibility. The thing that, you're saying about being on YouTube, 3-4 times a week. Lizzie Bennet Diaries, which is probably one of the more wildly successful web series, did that in such a way that they had something that they could produce simply. They had a lot of content and they could have seasons and episodes, and being able to do that over and over again, it's really about being a presence in people's lives in a way that maybe the first season of a television show doesn't have to be. But I mean, we made a pilot. We made a TV pilot, and the problem with making just a TV pilot is that you can put it out there and people are like, great, I want to watch the next 10 episodes. Right. It's like, okay, we'll work on that.
Yeah. Well, it's ironic because in the TV business, it's even in the cable business, I mean, they're making series that you will not see the next season for 15 months to 2 years. And you go like, I want to see it now. I want to see it in 6 months, So they keep, it's working there. So, Diarra, If you were going to start writing today, what would you do?
You know, I made the same mistake that they made, which was I made a big production. I made a television show and not really a web series. But it worked out. You know, it worked out. It didn't go viral, but people began to see me as a television writer, and I was able to make my living as a writer and an actor after that. But if you're trying to make a web series that's going to go viral, everything that they said is just so right, from the marketing, from really finding out what the whole is, what can you make that is so specific and so cool that you've been dying to see your whole life and nobody managed to think to do it yet. Like, you have to be so specific, really think beforehand, and start marketing beforehand, start making vines and loops and all that stuff to get people excited. But yeah, I made a lot of mistakes, but I'm sort of better for them.
Hence the brilliance of Pizza for 10. I will say, just as a footnote to Pizza for 10, I don't even think in the terms that they're thinking of. I think in something that will show what my sensibilities are, and Pizza for 10 got me an assignment from an animation house that wanted me to rewrite 2 animated features for them. So when people ask me, how much money did I make on my web series, I say, well, I didn't make any money on my web series. It cost me Pizza for 10. And I got hired to do 2 animated features. So how much money did I make on my web series? You know, so again, there's one way of thinking about it, and how many hits can I get? How many views can I get? And yeah, I'm not discouraging anybody from doing that. But personally, I don't think in those terms.
Yeah, I mean, I think too, like, if you're making a web series, it's like the idea very clear at the beginning, really funny. If you can get a famous person in the first 30 seconds, that would be great. But at the same time, if you look at something like Broad City, which never went viral, but the executives at Comedy Central saw a show in there. So are you looking for something for your agents to send out and people to go, this person is a showrunner or a creator? So it just really comes down to deciding what you want.
All right, and if we come down to Sam, I think this is a good time to plug his event, which is coming up next week.
On May 3rd, the Education Committee is doing another panel. It's called The Other Foot in the Door. It's about getting your second TV writing job and beyond that. They're shortened orders with cable and everything like that. It's sort of putting a squeeze. We already have a lot of reservations, and they'll cap it after a few more. So if you're interested, please RSVP. It should be a really great discussion with, everything from showrunners to, recent staff writers, agents, executives. It should be a really good panel. Thank you, Bill.
Richard, what is the future of Stage 32?
Well, first, I just want to say, if I was studying a web series today, based on the search results of what I heard up here, it would be called Grope Girls.
Would do very well.
I registered that while I read it. The future of Stage 32 is, we're investing more heavily into the educational side of things. Forbes wrote a really nice article about us, what they called us LinkedIn meets Linda.com for people working in film, television, and theater. We're working with about 550, I think it is now, industry executives worldwide to provide educational opportunities for people on the site. So that's a big part of where we're going.
Are you talking about entertainment, educational things, or just in general?
Everything having to do with craft and business. It doesn't matter if you're an actor or a crew person, or if you're looking to learn about UK tax credits, let's say. I mean, there's something for everybody, and that's the whole thing. There's a lot of really, I don't think I need to tell anybody in this room. I saw it as an actor, it bothered me, but it never bothered me as much as it does as a writer. I think you'll all agree that there are a lot of snake oil salesmen out there on the web, and a lot of shady people. So we want to bring the top drawer educators into the mix. And as you said earlier about the YouTube situation, or they say that things, by the time you read this, it's going to change, or within a year it's going to change. That's another part of it, because we want the education to be up to date, be information that you could use right now. We've had actually classes on this exact subject on taking matters into your own hands and controlling your own content and creating your own content, and how to go about it, how to market it, how to distribute it.
Are these the webinars? Is this the webinar stuff you're talking about?
We have webinars, classes, and labs.
Right.
Yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Michael, WebFest, what's in the future?
Well, I would just want to add to piggyback on that. If I was doing a web series again, and I will, because I still do that, I would write something I love. I wouldn't care about views or going viral. No one can predict going viral.
Right.
Do what you believe in. Do that idea you can't do in TV, you can't do in film. Show that family that you don't see on television that you want to see. Maybe it's your family. Do it, because again, if this is your swan song, this is all you're ever going to do, and you look back on this 20 years ago, at least it's something you cared about.
Do you ever think about cost when you're going through that?
Well, I've seen shows made for a lot of money, because I see so many shows. I've seen them made for a lot of money and horrible, and I've seen them made for no money and they're great. It's
right,
like
but when
theater.
you think of your own, do you sort of say, come up with an idea?
Yeah, when I
and
think
you-
of my own, I feel good about it because it's something I cared about. I mean, that's just for maybe because I came out of TV and film. I'm still in that. It's like someone that came out of the TV and film. I'm not trying to break in. I'm already in, and so I look at it from a different point of view. And I can see a show because I've seen so many shows, and it could have 10 views, but I can still say it's a great show.
Yeah.
Because we're writers. Producers, we're not marketing departments. That's a whole different thing, and they're wrong a lot of times. How many films, how many great they can't predict blockbusters. They didn't. Did you read the history of Deadpool? Deadpool's been sitting around for 10 years. Nobody wanted to make that movie. They didn't believe in Star Wars, so they gave George Lucas all the ancillary rights. Hey, take the toys. This is gonna suck, and that's why he's a billionaire, because they didn't believe in it. So
never did that again.
Exactly. And the guy got fired, and the
right,
lawyer became a studio head. So
we got several more things we want to cover.
So if you're
tonight.
but I would say if you want to come to LA WebFest, one thing that the studio, Warner Brothers, this is the first time they've ever held any kind of festival at their lot in 90-something years. Definitely Web Series Festival. They're curious and a little scared. But because I was in the Warner Brothers Writers Workshop, I've worked on 4 shows at Warner Brothers, and that helped. They felt like, okay, he's a cousin. He's one of us. He's not like, not like we don't know him, but we still don't know. We haven't been around this cousin very much. We don't know where he's, But if you're interested in coming to the festival, even thinking about it, I would say go to LAWEBFest@gmail.com. Give us your name, just think Gmail, LA WebFest. And we'll put it on the list, because we have to submit a list to Warner Brothers every day of who's coming. Otherwise, you can't get on the lot. It's not like going to the local theater. Again, they're very protective. They want it. They're interested, but they're scared. And that's what new media, I think, has done for. When it's not there, someone said, when they're not making it, they're a little gun shy, because they're used to making everything. This is the first time, if you think about it, theater, television, film, they're controlling it. They're giving the money, and we think we're doing our thing. No, we're doing what they want us to do. TV is Madison Avenue. They're the ones deciding what are we going to see. Web series is the first time that the people are deciding what they want to see.
Right.
You don't care what they say, and then they can't control you, because it's your money. And like someone said earlier, the young man said earlier here, I don't want to, I want this, but I don't want to give it up. The way they look, what they tell us in television, hey, that's what the money's for. We're going to pay you $10,000 a week. You better write what we want.
Yeah.
Because that's why if you want to write what you want, we won't pay you.
That's really the impetus behind something like this. I mean, I always like to try to empower writers to realize that they are the first link in the chain. There is nothing stopping you but you from taking advantage of all of this. I would like to thank the panel. I think the one thing I admire about every one of them, and I didn't know any of them, these two I met because they were on the podcast of Third and Fairfax, which is the WGA podcast, and Steve Troutman. I don't know if he's here anywhere. There he is back there. He's single-handedly got this thing going when everybody went, good luck. And they were on there, and I heard them, and I said, that's a great story. I wanted to hear it. So I also encourage you to subscribe to the Third and Fairfax. But I want to compliment everybody, and I'm admiring all of you, because you did something from your heart, from your passion. You did something you wanted to do. You started it. You got it made. You learned the mistakes you made, or for the future, or what you would do differently. And I'm a fan of all of yours. Before we leave, before we start a question and answer period, we have a representative from the Guild, Elizabeth Flack, who has been sitting patiently there. And what she's going to do is she's going to read the Constitution to us, and she's going to tell us exactly what we need to consider to make, as they said here, WGA acceptable. Thanks, Elizabeth.
You're welcome. Thank you. So As Bill said, my name is Elizabeth Flack. I work here at the Guild. I've been here for 12 years. I was working on covering new media for the Guild before the writer's strike. So the writer's strike was very exciting for me because it's an area I've been very passionate about for a very long time. And then post-writer's strike, we actually won terms and conditions that are in the basic agreement that protect you as writers. So when it comes to original web series like what we're discussing tonight, I have to thank Joelle and David for essentially bridging this and bringing up that they covered their own web series Writers Guild. That David was willing to sign the basic agreement as a producer and cover Joelle's work, and because of that, she is now a member of our union. So congratulations. Yeah.
All it had to be, all I had to pay her was a non-zero amount at the budget level that we were at. So I called her and we agreed upon a non-zero price. So don't let that scare you off. It's very easy to be Guild signatory.
Yeah. So the four main areas that the Guild basic agreement, and so this is the first question that I always get in the contracts department for original made for new media, very small budgeted projects is, one, can I myself cover my own work? And the answer is yes. If you have an incorporated or an LLC entity that you can sign to the basic agreement, then you can cover your project. Two, the next question is how much money do you have to pay yourself? The minimum rate is negotiable between the writer and the company. So it has two conditions on it. The first condition is it cannot be a $0 amount. The writer must be paid for their work. They are professional. The second condition is that money cannot be deferred, meaning you cannot promise to pay that money later after it's on YouTube and after it has 1 million views. You have to pay the writer when the writer delivers the script. And if you're employing yourself to write, that means at some point you have to decide you delivered your script. Gonna work that out with yourself in your head. The next thing is pension and health benefits. Pension and health benefits are due on top of whatever is negotiated. You, of course, have to submit a notice of tentative writing credits and go through the credit process here at the Guild, where we still vet the credits that go online. And then last, you get the internet as your release platform. You can put it anywhere online. But if you are lucky enough to have a project that does so well that it goes viral and that everybody wants it and it gets further distribution and offers, such as to put it on television or foreign television, or you get a movie theater release if you do the first ever really long project that does really well, then you would owe the residual for the secondary market. And those are the primary 4 areas that we protect here at the Guild. We are looking at from the perspective of that you are professionals and that we are looking at the long tail of the potential of your projects. And we really believe it's incredibly important to cover your work, to make sure that you treat yourself as a professional. You earned your membership in this Guild. It's important to keep it going and to support others who are also trying to get in and learn. So if you always have any questions, I'm here tonight. If there's any during the Q&A. And then you can always call me here in the contracts department here at the Guild. We're always happy to answer any questions that you might have on film, TV, or new media. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you, Elizabeth. All right, now I want to spend some time with questions that you might have. I will repeat the question. It could be for anybody on the panel, except Michael. Yes.
Thank you guys so much. Huge thank you, because we're all clueless out here, but all want to be involved in it. So it's, why thank you so much. I'm just saying thank you so much because this is so helpful, and I've been a 20-year feature writer. I'm writing TV. I just wrote a pilot for a 10-episode miniseries that will go to a streaming platform. So I broke in, which is fantastic. I'm thrilled that it's happening, and I got paid, and it was signatory thanks to you. And we've actually spoken, and we've never met. But I called you. But I called you up to say I want to do this, and I want to do this legitimately. I want to be a professional. So much helpful information tonight. I thank you. So here's my question briefly, because you said something that stuck with me, that you made your episodes too long. So I'm interested in what you think is the right length. And the other one is you guys are all talking about how marketing is brutal. And if you can just say anything about an idea that works and maybe an idea that didn't. And that would be so helpful to all of us. Thank you.
I think the perfect length for a pilot for the first one is 3 minutes. And then once you have people hooked, they can get as long as 5 or 10. But I just know me. If someone sends me something and it's longer than 10 minutes, I'm like, I can't do it. But I'll sit there and watch a bunch of 2-minute clips of something that 20 minutes will have gone by. So I think it just scares people when they see that they have to sit still and pay attention for 10 minutes or more. And then the other thing that I would add to that is there are people who have channels on YouTube who already have a bunch of subscribers, and you can maybe approach those people. I know Black and Sexy TV is one. There's a bunch. I would figure out, like, if it's craft beer, find the appropriate channels and try to talk to them first. And so you can maybe come out with something that's 5 minutes because they've cultivated a viewership that knows and trusts their content. And then the other thing that works is, oh man, there was a girl, and I need her back, who is like, she had just gotten out of college or something, and she was like, I'm on the computer all day anyway. And so she was putting on Facebook from the American Koko thing just all these cute little funny memes and GIFs, and she was interacting with people online, and someone would say, that's funny. First of all, I should say my show is about racial issues, like funny, how to handle funny little sticky racial situations. And so she would be like, oh no, Donald Trump tried it today. And then 5 people would talk back to her. And she was just constantly on, she started our Instagram. She was on Facebook.
Social media is very, very important.
Yeah.
Never.
Our episodes.
They vary. They're 5 to 7 minutes each, and there were 7 of them. Yeah.
And marketing, yeah. I mean, I personally quit Facebook a couple of years ago because I was just had enough of it and was knowing too much about people that I had happily not thought about in 20 years. But as soon as you start using it for marketing, it's just like the head comes open and it's like, oh, you want homosexual men all over the world? We got them. It's like you can target the marketing so specifically, like you can, and it's cheap. It's relatively inexpensive to advertise on Facebook, and it's truly shocking what they have demographically in terms of your ability to find just women aged 35 to 49 who are interested in shopping, and it is all right there.
All the analytics. But the one
That's
thing I will say,
amazing.
let me just add that the wisdom of today, it's not going to stay this way, is the way people like watching web series is what they call snacking. So 5 minutes or under. It's like their lunch hour or whatever it is, and they can watch 2 or 3 of them if they want. So when you get into 10 and 20 minutes and longer than that, that's not smart, which is why, as writers, I also think you have to bear in mind, you can't make a 3 or 4 minute webisode that is just a cut down version of your hour show. You really have to stick with the parameters of something that will work in 3 or 4 minutes. You can't suddenly say, all right, the first minute is act 1. It just doesn't work that way. So 5 minutes or under, I say, is the going wisdom of today, and that can change.
It's like if you're going to go to the movies and get a whole thing of popcorn, this is like how long it would take you to chew one piece.
Any other questions? Yes.
Wait till a mic comes to you, please.
Oh,
real quick, I'll take that time. Deconstruct successful web series. There's a show called Teachers that made it on TV Land. You have an ensemble of 6 women who are in the Chicago comedy scene who are doing shows. It took them a year of pushing it out. They got on the front page of Funny or Die. They got an EP attached, and then they were able to sell it to TV Land. But that's a year of 6 people doing in-person events at least weekly.
Yeah. And I would say to you, I meant to bring this up before, there is what they call Vimeo Video School, which anybody can learn about. And they have tons of videos and webinars and stuff that you can go about what you need to think about, what you need to do, what you need for pre-production, and it's all free. All right, it's Vimeo Video School. So that covers some of that. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Over there.
Oh yeah, Oh yes, I'm sorry.
A few of you have talked about this, but I'm going to direct it more to Joelle because this was your first produced credit.
everybody's talked about like making the web series to get yourself noticed. How did that translate, doing the web series, to somebody seeing that and getting you the next step? Like, was it something that you already had reps that were putting it out there, or did people come out and find you?
Yeah, so it was a little bit of a combination of the two, actually. I was repped beforehand, actually at the same place as David. And so our reps together were the ones that were kind of pushing it out there and had a premiere party. But I think Sam had mentioned it and stuff. For me, when I'm on meetings, it's not so much the big talking point, but it is something that's mentioned, and people that have seen it before are really receptive to it. And so, yeah, it's definitely more of an ancillary thing for me, as opposed to that it opened a lot of doors. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Christy?
Where we at?
You need a microphone?
Come to the front.
Oh, okay. And then we can go back to.
Awesome. Hi. Thank you all. This is awesome. I think my question is, a lot of you pitch for television, and you also pitch to digital platforms. What is the major difference between pitching for television and pitching digital? And what are networks looking for on a digital platform versus like a television studio? Is that clear?
I mean, from our experience trying to sell cam girls, I would say the big difference is that the networks know what they want. The digital space is there has yet to be the killer app. It's like Sam was saying, there's really not been that web series that everybody's like, oh, we're watching this, and so you kind of, when you're going into pitch a TV show, you're pitching within kind of a language. Everybody knows it's going to be a half hour, it's going to be a 1 hour, and this is the engine that drives it, and it's a procedural or genre. This, you kind of have to invent the wheel a little more fundamentally than that, which is why we kind of adapted from television, because I think television has a product that works, but
Yeah, I think that networks themselves, they do have their particular brands and stuff, and a lot of the digital networks, they're still kind of finding them. And so, yeah, it's just a matter of speaking to what they're interested in.
The studio I pitched at, I think has actually figured it out pretty well. And for them, a big part of it was the talent, where they were interested in the idea, but they wanted someone who had YouTube creator experience and a lot of subscribers involved there. I will say, having just sort of anecdotally knowing my friends, there seems to be a little bit more money in digital for people to produce stuff. It might not necessarily be the thing you want to produce. It might be like more short form. But there seems to be sort of a wave of digital money where they're like, okay, the ad money is going to come, but we haven't. I've heard it's like TV before Howdy Doody. Like no one knew how to make money then, and that's kind of where it's at now. So I can't go in and pitch at Warner Brothers. I'm just not at that level. But like a small digital studio, I think some of those opportunities are a little bit more open.
In the back.
I had a budget question. You had mentioned, a couple of the folks had mentioned that they had produced, you were full signatory union all the way across. You had done very high production value. For 5 minutes, what is that range at the top of a full signatory, all union type of show versus if you were working, still paying people, but you were not working within all the unions? Just so we can have a better idea of what 5 minutes might cost.
Well, I mean, it depends entirely on the project, and we weren't full signatory. We did WGA and SAG. I'm a member of IATSE as well, and I felt bad about not doing that. But at a certain point, you just realize that you want to own a house someday. It's so. I don't want to get into the specifics of our budget just because that seems like bad policy. But it's so driven by the form. We were trying to make something that looked very much like television. So we shot 2 cameras. We shot 2 reds. We had a DP and camera ops, first ACs. We had a grip crew and electric. I mean, we put together a full shoot. The big compromise was instead of camera dollies, we got sliders and used those instead of camera dollies because, so much of what makes television look like television is just slowly drifting that way. So we got that same effect. But the problem is that the sky's the limit. The problem is that we could have spent 10 times what we spent. The trick is, and I bet you guys have had similar experiences, that whatever you spend on the shoot, add a 0 and that's what you're going to spend on post, and then add another and that's what you're probably going to wish you could spend on marketing. It has a tendency to balloon. So, I mean, you can do it as cheaply as you can do it, and I would advise that. But at the end of the day, it's about spending the money in a way that's smart, so that you put it on the screen rather than, into not feeling guilty or something.
Richard, I would think Stage 32 would have the answers for some of these questions with
Well, yeah, I mean, but as far as just even getting into the marketing, it's what we spoke about earlier. This is why there's paid marketing, which we were talking about here, which is fantastic. And yeah, you could drill down, but then there's this building your audience, beforehand, which is free marketing. And I think that's where anytime you have more people in the pool, right, and the noise level gets higher, how do you stand out in the pool? How do you rise above the din, right? One of the ways you rise above the din is by giving yourself a competitive advantage over most of the people that are out there on social media or that are trying to do the same thing that you're trying to do. And one of the ways to do that, of course, is to not be a broadcaster. How many people do you encounter on social media that are coming at you going, look at me, being a narcissist, right? There are two ways, in my opinion, to really start engaging people on social media. The easiest way to do it is to ask questions about other people, engage people. If we go back to the craft beer thing, what made you start the business? Or if it's a group, what made you start? What do you like? What do you engage people? When was the last time that somebody asked you a question and you stood there silently? Somebody's going to respond, right? It's an entry point. The other way is to share content on social media because it gives people an insight into who you are and what you're about and what you're looking to do. If you're sharing your 10 favorite craft beer article, okay? There are so many ways to get a competitive advantage on the marketing side that people do not take advantage of, and on the branding side that people do not take advantage of. And that is something that is really completely in your control every day, all day. And, a lot of people get intimidated by social media because they feel like they have nothing to offer. But you could always ask a question. You could always share content. And that certainly is something that we preach on Stage 32 all the time.
Right.
Just to sort of address the question of the range in production, I have a buddy who spent no money on his web series, and this has been a process for him. He didn't save money for post. Save money for post. Editors will not work for free. He is now about to release the web series that I helped him write 3 years ago because he had free labor. Whereas when we first did our incarnation of LA Beer, it was a little less specific. It was like a small batch liquor place called On the Rocks. Anyways, we... one of our members had casting experience. So the second we had a pilot script, we started casting. And 3 months later, we wanted to keep our cast, so we had to start a shoot. That cost thousands of dollars. I will say, don't think of a budget in 5-minute increments. You really need to be thinking in at least 30, 50-minute increments. You need to amortize that cost over multiple episodes. So, if you're shooting inside your house and your friend is the director, you can keep costs down to pizza for 10. If you're a little bit more ambitious, that number will go up. About $100 a day is what I generally find for professionals to work on a set to actually give you the work and treat you not as a volunteer, but as an employee. And then I will say add a 0 to that for post, and you will be very thankful that you saved money for post. You can do it yourself. That's certainly a way to do it, but post actually gets it done.
Well, and we shot in my living room, and that's the other thing to factor into the costs is we're not doing that again because my house never recovered from having a low budget web series shoot in it. We had to move.
Michael, you've seen so many web series. Do you see any trends or anything that sticks out to you as being a really unique way of going?
That's a good question. I just see a lot of different voices that I don't see on television and I don't see in film. I don't even see I go to a lot of theater now. I don't see it, and that's what draws me to it. I get tired of the same old stuff. I don't know, but I get tired of the same show with a different cast. But it's just they're talking about the same stuff because that's what they want to talk about because they're trying to sell something. But on the web, you just see so many different. And what's crazy is you'll see a show about a bunch of friends who are gay and they hang out. It's about them in their 20s, and there's one being done in LA. There's one being done in Australia. There's one being done in Italy. But the culture is affecting how the show goes. But it's their own story. It's different. It's something I've never seen. You can't see this on television. What I really love also, I love the fact that a lot of women a lot of showrunners on the web are women. And we have 2 panels every year about it's called the Women Warrior panels. This year it's called Dropkick Chicks and the Men Who Love Them. And it's all about how these women they're writing stories that they don't see on television, of different side maybe of being a woman, and the director's a woman, the producer's a woman, a lot of the cast are women. And it's not like all female, but I mean they're the driving force behind a lot of female showrunners in web series, and it's just fresh to me. I even though I oversee the festival and I have people that watch, I watch everything. I watch every episode of everybody's show because I used to delegate. I still delegate, but what was happening was some people weren't watching all the episodes. But I watched all the episodes, and I say, well, what do you think about episode 6? They're like, huh? Well, you're supposed to watch all 8 episodes. And it bothered me. I said, well, I've got to watch all these episodes because my no matter who I get, they won't watch them all. But what it did is I realized it helped me. Actually, it was a chore, but it made me better to me. And now I enjoy it. I look forward to seeing, okay, what are they, this show sucks, 3 episodes. Wow, episode 4 got better. Episode 8, it really got good. Season 2 is even better. And some shows start off good. Season 1 is great, and then they get a little cute, a little fancy, and then they go in a whole different direction, season 2, and it's like, then they say, why didn't I get in, Mike? I say, well, you got a little full of yourself because season 1 you're on the right track. I don't know what the hell you guys were doing in season 2. Nobody knew what was going on. So
there's a woman behind you, I think, with it. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. For David and Joelle, I was surprised to hear you. If I understood you right, you said YouTube weighed in on your content and your title, and my question is how explicit you can be for.
Okay.
You're gonna put out on YouTube.
The day we launched it, we had a premiere party at UTA, which was lovely, and we screened it for people. And then we went live at like 9 a.m. on a Monday morning. And Joelle comes over to our house, and we have donuts and champagne, and we put our web series live. And then I'm trying to figure out how to advertise it on YouTube, and it gets rejected. And like within 2 hours, I steadily go down this rabbit hole. So here's the problem with YouTube. They're part of Google, and this is a technology company, not an entertainment company. And YouTube and Google are in a non-stop daily fight to stop pornography from showing up in places that it shouldn't. So by doing a show that was about pornography, the show is not pornography, but it's about that. It was indistinguishable from them, and it wound up with me like 2 weeks later on the phone with a guy in India trying to explain, that this wasn't what he thought it was. And I'm like, just watch the trailer with me. And he's watching it. But the thing is, this is, you can't kiss on screen in Bollywood movies. So he's like, right away, I'm seeing unacceptable parts of a woman's body. And I could not explain it to them. And it was part of our marketing strategy that, maybe we could have seen coming, but I sure didn't, because you could put our show on ABC at 8 p.m. Like what it's about is salacious, but it's quite tame and character driven. But it was a wall that, try as we might, we could not really get past. Think about that. I'm still proud that we, chose the content that we chose, and I'm proud we treated it the way we treated it. But there are definitely things that you may run into that it is shocking, because you're not making this just for the American market. You're making it for the entire world, and it's going to go out all over the place, and you will be shocked what places are offended by or not into. And I'm not saying you should tailor it to that, but be ready for that, because I was truly surprised that it was such a thing.
Somebody's going to make it.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to do it.
Well, on the reverse of it, though, I have had people privately come up to me that they were searching cam girls for something else and then stumbled across our show.
Wait, what? What were they searching for? I don't know about this.
And so, yeah, that's
hilarious.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
Okay. Yes, Christian?
Hi. I have a question about contracts, actually. When you have talent and you have DPs and people are working, putting the shoot together, what kind of contracts are they signing with you? Or are they not signing contracts? Like, if you do an episode for 10 pizzas and then for the next episode they want $10,000 in your car, how do you keep that from happening?
Well, the SAG New Media contract just says that you have to decide between the producer and the actor. Yeah. So, it can be a fee of 0.
Yeah,
so
the WGA is literally above 0. What's the first number above 0?
I didn't know SAG-AFTRA
Yeah, SAG New Media.
We did deferred payment, which is lovely because you negotiate their fee, and then in success, there's the chance that they get paid, and it's good for everybody. But get a W-9 if you're paying people, because you're going to need that unless it's off the books.
And just to point out here, this is a good opportunity to recognize that if you're working with multiple unions, each union has its own set of rules for the talent that you're working with. So, as mentioned, under the SAG agreement, you can do a zero payment and deferred payments. That's not allowed under the Writers Guild agreement. So, under the Writers Guild agreement, the writer has to be paid and it cannot be deferred. So you have to recognize that. And then there are different websites available that in maybe even on Stage 32, if there's not, there might be a new section you can think about, which are template contracts that are available for the industry. There are a few websites out there that do have template contracts and samples of contracts, so you can actually see these types of agreements that crew members and actors and writers sign. And have those ducks in a row prior to. There's also another nonprofit organization called California Lawyers for the Arts, and they do lawyer and attorney referrals, but they also have a resource library, and they answer questions about these types of legal concepts. So, like, while here at the Guild we can answer very specific questions about the writer agreements and our underlying contract, an organization like California Lawyers for the Arts can answer these broader questions.
Okay, one more question, because I promised these folks they'd be out of here by 9:30, and I would like to give you 10 minutes to descend on them by yourselves. All right? So one more question.
This is actually more of a suggestion, but I want to say, first of all, thank you all so very much. One thing I wanted to suggest, because having gone through this myself, is don't forget makeup and hair, especially for if you have men and women, but especially the women will really appreciate you if you give them makeup and hair, because Lord knows I know nothing about it. And one way to go about it is the makeup I think it's called MUD, Makeup and Design School, or Makeup and Hair School. That's what we did. And basically, you have students who are graduating who want to work in the industry in makeup and hair. And you just, post it on their whatever board, and you will get inundated with portfolios. So, and then you can get, and then negotiate whatever contract. But I just want to say, think about makeup and hair, which I normally would never have thought of, but hooray for actresses.
And ADs. And ADs are very important.
Yes.
Get
Yes.
ADs. Have a first AD and a second AD. One's not good enough.
All right, I really want to thank them for giving of their time, and this was really just an overview that you really have the control in yourself to go from concept to completion and beyond. It's up to you whether you take advantage of it. But I'd hate to see you look back a year from now and say, I wish I had. So thank you for coming. Thank them for coming.